Remember the good old days when we had suit jackets for an event that you weren't barred out from?
Barely, but sort of. Conceptually, I'll say yes to be polite. Do you
I'm
mean
gonna I'm gonna begin the stream with amazing news out here from Prague.
go ahead?
Oh shit, hold on. Ooh. Okay, there it is. Okay. The good news is, as of a few hours ago, Prague is back under the state of emergency, and we are beginning to escalate our lockdowns. So, starting from 10 to 6 in the morning, no restaurants and cafes and pubs can be open, and they're canceling the Christmas markets because Merry fucking Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas and fuck you. Was this the other alternative to doing the full Austrian thing of making not being vaccinated illegal? Which
No,
they
they're
were
gonna
considering it,
do
weren't
that, I'm sure, within a few months, but, like, the way that Prague likes to do it is escalate. It's like they definitely, like, edge on the foreplay thing, it's not so
they? They're edging
brutish.
you right now.
Yeah, they don't go straight in it, it's, they really like that feminine touch of just, like, soft caressing with the lockdowns and then go full force.
I really enjoyed your description. That's as
You're
that's as
welcome.
close that's as close as I've gotten for a while.
You're welcome.
Pierre's description of lockdowns in the Czech Republic is as close as Richard got to getting some for a few weeks.
It's the only way to talk about this without making me miserable, so foreplay it is.
They just gently tickle the undercarriage until you're ready to go into a full lockdown.
Mhm. Every year, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas now.
I wonder how it is that the UK is doing so well, considering we're in Europe and the borders are open. And strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very strange. So yeah, with the news in Austria, they're going really hard right now. That shit's crazy as fuck. Like I've seen opinions about this whole predicament change before my eyes because of this Austria thing.
Oh,
That is on
really?
another level. Yeah. I've known people that are like on one side, and then now that they're doing this thing, they're just like, okay, maybe it's time to pump the brakes a little bit. This is a
Yeah.
little wild.
Yeah, it is wild. I mean, to actually make it illegal to not undergo a medical procedure that is still in its experimental phase is very strong.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, within Austria, it started off with lockdowns only for the unpoked. And then they were like, nah, it's not enough, Brit. And then the next week they did overall collective mandated pokes for everybody, or otherwise you have to pay a $500 to $1,000 euro fine, or you go to jail.
Thank you, Austria.
Yeah.
Lederhosen and fascism. I like Austria. I was in Vienna just a couple of months ago. It's a beautiful city. Austrians are great people, so I don't really know what this is all about. It seems a little wild.
No, it's quite clean and orderly there. So I mean, maybe that goes in with a cultural relation of keeping things clean and orderly. I don't know, man.
I'm gonna put the caveat in that we keep having to put in that we're not anti-poke in principle. It's just that what we're doing is we're questioning the severity of the response in line with an assessment of the threat itself. Whether the threat is so high it merits this kind of a response. We just need to, keep it fucking clear in the days of polarization and people getting all out of whack over nothing.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Bond, how is Serbia? What's been going on your end? You look fresh as fuck. I put on a suit jacket right before the stream because I saw how good you looked in yours.
This is it, man. We're going to bring back the old school. It's a good look. This is the way it's going to go. We're going to go back to the old ways. I love Serbia. It's great. Serbian people are really cool. Belgrade's a cool city. Kind of feels a bit like Vienna, a bit like Prague, and a bit like Cluj. Do you know that it's Tentacle Croissants on there? Are you watching Tentacle Croissant in the bar? Oh, so you came in just to see us do it? Okay, so wave your tentacles. Okay.
No way.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, we're all matching too.
Yeah, we're all matching, all in black.
Amazing. So it looks like you're very welcomed in Serbia, and I feel like I'm welcome too. So I should be booking my flight pretty soon. No,
you should. Serbia is a cool place. It's a really, really cool place. And as I say, it's the people really. I mean, it's it's not a wealthy place. It's not like a super rich. Obviously, Czech is wealthier. Vienna is wealthier, but it still has that charm. It still has that appeal to it. People are nice. They're reserved, but they're friendly. Super hospitable. Like we said about Czechs, you break through that sort of like that little bit of
Yeah.
the Slavic frostiness,
Yeah.
and underneath that is there's a lot of warmth. It's great. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like it. Really like
Yeah,
it.
for some reason, I think I like was born with a DLC that just kind of breaches that initial coldness that Slavs have.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I just that disintegrates for me really soon. Like I don't really have a warm up period with them.
yeah.
But it works
You're
out.
you're an instant boundary breaker.
Yeah, I think so. But is this where you're holding your seminars? Is that why she recognizes you, or is it just a random hotel that she just knows?
That lady who is watching us now, and she told me she was going to watch us. There's mosquitoes here. It's 4 degrees C, but the Serbian mosquitoes are still going hard.
Hmm.
They don't give a fuck.
They don't.
So I'm doing it. All the seminars being done in this hotel on the Radisson.
Got you.
Yeah,
Got
yeah. And I'm staying here, and I was shooting today. We shot a bunch of B-roll around Belgrade. So when the seminars come out, it'll be like interspersed just to keep relocating that we're in Belgrade. So yeah, yeah. She's from the UK and she's here all week to get all the seminars. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So, can you talk about your experiences so far with the seminars, or is that
Yes, I can.
confidential?
Well, it's not confidential. I just have to be super careful with how I talk about it. So Liverpool went okay. I had security in Liverpool. I don't usually need security in London, so I don't usually book it. In Liverpool, we have had a few incidents where I've needed security, and in Serbia, I was like, I'm not going to need it. But in London, a lady arrived early, which can be a bit of a red flag because they're trying to like, see what's
Yes.
going on. They're like an hour early, and then they linger
Mhm.
around. And you know, it was really it was awkward because I would say hello to her and she'd just stare at me like that, and then she just started following around the place. At the end of the seminar, I was obviously people come up to me at the end and say thanks very much, you've really helped me. So I'll finish the seminar and I'll sit at the desk, and I'm like the Santa Claus of CPTSD. A line forms and people come over to shake hands, which I don't mind at all. But after 2 hours of talking, I also am human and I need to pee and like go home and sleep. So I went to the bathroom, and when I opened the door to the bathroom, which was in a little corridor, this
Okay.
this lady was there, and she tried to block me from leaving.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
she kept saying to me, "Did you know I'd be here? Do you want to talk about it?" And I was like, "This is how I die. She's just going to pull a knife out and start shanking me in the guts at some
Jesus fucking
point."
Christ, no way. And then?
Yeah. Then I had to. I've done this, but I had to do this in San Diego. I think I've told that story before, where I'll talk, but I'll move. So you've got to get in front of witnesses because you don't know if you're going to be accused of a sexual assault afterwards, or you could end up like, all joking aside, people do get stabbed by people who are psychotic.
Yeah.
So I started moving to where there was people and saying, "You must leave me alone, or else I'm going to have to call the police. But you know, it's a seminar, it's not therapy. I don't know you. Please leave me alone. This is stalking. I'm going to have to call the police." Which was a real shame because it was a good seminar. It was a really good vibe. It's going to be out next week. It's funny. It's like the
Mhm.
audience participation was great, but it is at a point now, and a similar thing, not the same, but a similar thing happened last night here in Belgrade, and with the same protocol. Somebody arrives really early. They're extremely odd to talk to, and you can tell by the way they're talking, the way they look at you. They look at you like, "Yeah, I know what you're saying, but we know that we have a shared secret, don't we, Richard?" And I'm like, "No, we fucking don't. I've never seen you
Yeah.
before in my life." So yeah, I'm going to get security on all the stuff in the future, I think.
So did she escalate the comments and the conversation with you, or and eventually you just kind of like backed away because it got kind of
Fortunately, there was a child psychologist who was within hearing shot, and she came over and she immediately grasped what was going on, and she has the right to physically stop this lady from following me, and I just basically I left the hotel and I left the seminar room. This is the middle of London. Turned left and just started walking really, really fast. Got completely fucking lost. But I didn't want to have another interaction with her without witnesses there that I knew.
Right.
Because there's so many ways in which this can go wrong. There's so many
Well,
ways.
sure.
In which,
I mean, obviously, there's the most drastic consequences of getting stabbed or getting whatever.
yeah.
But even in the most like domesticated suburban pain, which is the most awkward moment in interaction, like that's already painful enough, man.
I mean, at one point, because that was the third time she'd cornered me. The second time, I had the sense to pull out my phone and start audio recording the lunacy that she was spouting, and she turned and ran away. The third time, my hands were full with my bag, so I couldn't record it. But yeah, it's super awkward. It's super, super awkward because the person's delusional. Like they're having a conversation with somebody else about something else, but you're the representative, and that's why it's so dangerous.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how you do this real life thing so well, man. I mean, this is the way that things were for as long as humanity has existed. But I mean, ever since I would consider doing meetups, I always backed out last second just for these particular situations, man.
It's not always been this way for as long as humanity's been existed, to the extent that the assumption nowadays is the man is the predator and he must be in the wrong. So whatever happens, it will be assumed that it's your fault. Even the way people respond to this story, they'll be like, "Oh, you're mocking a woman who's mentally ill." And I'm like, "Well, if you flip the genders and it was a guy following a woman out of the toilet, you wouldn't give a single solitary fuck about whether he was mentally ill or not. Not one."
He just had social anxiety. Like what?
Right. And that's what made him
Dude,
follow
that's
a woman,
amazing.
who's saying,
That's how
"Please leave me alone."
wow, that is amazing how much it doesn't apply when the genders are switched there.
Yeah. That's it. It's one of these wonderful double standards that we currently live with. But I don't actually cope with it very well. And I've said it before on this channel, and it's something that needs to be addressed elsewhere as well. I don't need this. I just don't need it. And so next year is we're going to start doing new things next year, and definitely starting new projects next year, because it's at a point now where I'm thinking, I'm not even at a size. These seminar groups are like between 25, 50 and sometimes 100 people. If I seriously need to pay for security, fuck it, man. I just rather not do it. I don't care enough about doing live seminars, and I don't, without wanting to sound callous, I care about people. And I want people to be okay, of course, in principle. But selfishly, like, I don't care enough about this subject. I really, really don't. There are other things we can talk about.
The thing is, you did care about this for at least 10 years. So
I've given it a lot, yeah.
I mean, you've already ran through it as well. And it feels like you're kind of at the end of a closing chapter, as well as me, man. Mine's a little more dramatic and a bit more expressive here, but I can definitely see you reaching the tail end of your burnout with this particular subject.
Yeah, I'm taking, I think the most likely next step is for me to take all of December off and to just be like, all right, time out, man. Not time out from this year, time out from what you just said, the last 10 years. Because things have their own momentum. Everything does.
Right.
Our nations, our cultures have their own momentum. And it's like this karmic load that you end up carrying. And then you're like, why am I even doing this? Why? Like, what the fuck? Like, what is the point of this? And is it worth it?
Sure.
And so, sometimes you do just have to let things die.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's definitely, I've just kind of given into that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, it feels like I've given up on all hope, but maybe at least 25 to 30, 40, 50, 60%, something along the lines of that. But I mean, it does feel good to just finally just let it happen, let it go, and just kind of sit back for as long as that might take. And that's kind of what I'm working on now, because even when I did start letting go months earlier this year, in the back of my mind, I was still thinking, what's the next thing though? I'm taking a break now, but what's the next thing? What
Yeah.
could I do when I'm done with this? And then eventually I let go of like that thought of what is that next thing, and
Yeah.
really just letting myself float in the hot tub for a bit.
Yes.
And I don't know. It's a pretty odd sensation because I don't necessarily feel like I've just completely given up, but I don't know. It's a bit of neutrality, I guess.
You need that. I think that like with the philosophy channel where I was talking about Nietzsche giving up hope and Kierkegaard embracing despair, that was the healthiness of allowing. We have to allow ourselves to grieve. And I think we've hit like a point where we've got a really weird relationship with history now. All of us, our personal history, our cultural history, our national history. We're trying to live like it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, we're stuck right bang in the middle of it, and you can't. It's difficult to grow. It's really difficult to grow because I say to people like, I want this project to end. Not the only person who supports me with that is you, and maybe Sam Backman. Everybody else is like, are you crazy? You're making money. You're blowing up on YouTube. You should step. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm going mad. I'm going. Just do you care? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really odd positioning. I think it really does take a certain person that either has gone through a very similar thing,
mm,
or I guess in this case, it's like, when you do checklist the, I don't know, the 70% of Maslow's pyramid
right.
hierarchy of needs there, like that's when you start really understanding other people's positioning with it,
Yeah.
and like only until the last 2 years, I started making enough money just to live.
Yeah.
And then, that was the biggest struggle for the last 6, 7 years of my life. And I would have probably looked at you or anybody else and thought the same thing, like,
Yeah.
why would you give that up? Meanwhile, I'm here now giving it up
Yeah.
because, you don't know what it's like to, you know, lose your mind, even though your material possessions and checklists are checked.
100%, 100%, and it's something that everybody should have the courage and the sense of enterprise enough to experience at least once.
Yeah.
So it's so childish to be like, oh no, just keep going. How could you possibly let that go? I'm like, how greedy are you? Like, what the fuck? Can you understand the philosophical
Yeah.
concept of a miserable billionaire? Of a billionaire who like has bad
Yeah.
teeth and his teeth hurt all the time, or a billionaire who's miserable and she's loveless and she got to like think, use your brain. It's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't everything.
You know what's crazy? I am nowhere near a millionaire, a billionaire, or anything even slightly below that.
Mm,
But I realize that the standard of living that I actually can live with is way, way lower. Just
yeah,
literally when I made at minimum
yeah,
rent money and extra recreational purposes like gaming and technology, stuff like that, whatever.
yeah,
And that was like it. And then, I think about maybe younger generations and stuff. There's a lot of other checklists. Say, for example, if that younger generation can pay rent, well, what else do they haven't done yet? Flip their brains out, possibly a relationship situation. I don't know, some fucking flashy car, whatever, whatever, whatever. Then you
yeah,
get to a particular age, what would that be like, 30, 40? Maybe they're just satisfied with just doing drugs all day. Who knows?
yeah.
But everybody generally will kind of attain that type of equilibrium somewhere down the line if they actually tried enough.
Yes, if they try enough and if they keep going with it, you become. There must be like some sort of cycle from the tarot or something. You have nothing, you strive, you fall, you get burnt out, you get trapped, then you strive again, then you get there, and then you transcend it. You're
Hmm.
dissatisfied with it, and you move past it. For me, the sense is like there's an awful lot of trapped energy here. There's an awful lot of
Yeah.
trapped energy, and there's a weird. My subjective opinion is there's a weird entitlement in people in their relationship with me. Like they think I have to do this. Like
Hmm.
they think I
Hmm.
have to be here to serve them. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so next year I'm going to prove a point. I'm really going to prove some points
Yeah.
next year. And this is
Sure.
going to be because there are other businesses I'm looking at doing, including business
Mhm.
coaching. And in order to do that, you should set up different businesses and go, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And I'm just going to do it to prove a point to myself and
Sure.
to prove a point to other people.
Yeah.
Be like, you
Right.
have some fucking humility, man.
Totally. And this is the same predicament where I don't know, like Radiohead is always screamed to play Creep every show that they do, and
Right.
there's the most masterful modern alternative musicians, and they are always told to play this simple 3 chord song Creep all the fucking time, and like I totally get it, and I don't think people realize they're doing it, but definitely with my cycle this year, I was like really resenting it. Like I really wanted to like prove a point to a point where it was forceful,
Yeah.
and I did it. And I don't know. I think I did feel better. I think I still do in a certain way, but it was definitely an impulse, like an undeniable impulse.
Well, the thing with the desire to prove a point, it can be very, very healthy, even if it's angry, because
Hmm.
it can motivate you to break through to new boundaries. The thing to remember with this thing with social media is it is a mirror. So if you're there, you're there, and if they're
Hmm.
entitled, it's because you're there all the time.
Ah,
So who's generating the entitlement? Like if you're pissed off because of the
hmm,
entitlement of the interactions, that's because you're there all the time. So
right.
I have a bunch of people who have listened to hours and hours of me. They carry me around in their pocket,
Yeah.
and then they see me, and no matter how many times I say, "Please don't hug me" at seminars, they still want to come up and touch me, and I'm like, "Motherfucker, like no means no. What is
Hmm.
wrong with you?" I'm a victim of narcissistic abuse. However, I'm not going to respect your boundaries. I'm like, all right, man. This is all right. Fucking all right. All right. So
Yeah.
that's at that point, I start saying, okay, do what you can and then stop. Do what you can and then stop. And that's where and I think it's the healthiest thing I can do is just go, okay,
Right.
mic drop.
Well,
Thank
I
you. Thank
think
you for your time and your attention. I'll see you on the other side.
I think in their head, especially their head, maybe yours, who knows? But when they found you and like
Mm,
listened to your particular topic, they literally
mm.
imagine a firefighter like pulling them out of the rubble, and then they hug you as a form of like the most gratitude and like
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
So, but they enter real life and there's that formality there. But in
Yeah.
their head, you already pulled them out of the burning building and, like saved all their family photos and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest, man. Like, uh, I've dipped my toe in this trying to like help people thing
Yeah.
spiritually, whatever, whatever. And then I see you do your work, and then I see the outcomes on your end, and then I see it on my end. And to be honest, like currently, I don't want to fucking help nobody. That's not my thing right now, man. Like, I do not have an incentive or feel like I would receive a balanced response or some sort of reward that I would enjoy if I was just helping people right now. Like,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it is
No,
what it is.
it's funny how that can work. And as far as the helping people goes, here's an interesting little anecdote, and maybe a tiny flex as well. I met a guy who has a BlackRock owned software company, and he deals only with hedge fund managers who have accounts that are over several billion. His operation is in Serbia, but his clients are predominantly in New York. We ended up having an hour and a half conversation in which I helped him redesign his marketing strategy. And at the end of it, he paid for my drinks to do this. And at the end of it, I was like, "You're going to make a lot of money off this, aren't you?" He was like, "Yeah, I think so." And I was like, "The only advice I gave you is stuff I learned by selling self-defense DVDs on eBay.
Hmm,
Everything is the same thing.
hmm,
Everything is the same thing." And he was saying, like, he's switching his business from, is he going to be, because it was consultancy, to a full packaged solution. They're two totally different things. When you help people and you're consulting with them and coaching them, it's extremely draining. It's
yeah,
extraordinarily draining because bad boundaries, just bad boundaries. Like
yeah,
people
that's
are
it.
like, well, your job is to make things okay for me. So you're basically my mummy or my daddy. And then you have to
Right.
come back with, no, I'm showing you how you can do this for yourself. And they kind of pout a little bit like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's not what I wanted. Because what the hope is that you'll just fix it for them. So you're giving them gold dust. Amazing. Like he was explaining to me what like, I don't understand finance, but what he's doing in his industry is 10 years ahead of everybody else. And so he would go in and offer the consulting to people, and even like adults, like most of his clients are in their 50s, billionaires pout. They're like, But when he changed it to a packaged solution that you just buy the whole thing, then they're grateful. So there's if you, like you just said about being in the role of helper, anybody who's watching this who's thinking about it, unless you have just a world full of compassion inside of you, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you will become resentful, because the way people will mistreat you, it's like a human software fault. They will try and make you their mummy or their daddy.
I think I'm at that point to conclude that it is a human software fault, because I don't think that these people necessarily meant to take advantage. I don't think they meant to like resent you for some reason later, that like they end up hating you for some reason, or they I don't know. There's like a lot of ways that the human emotions just spiral out of receiving that help. And I think that you made a really good point, because when you are a helper and the helpee subconsciously just recognizes that as, oh, thanks, mom, thanks, dad, because that's the first ever interaction that we ever had with help for the first fucking first fourth of our life was that. So when you receive help from any other type of figure, especially if they're older than you, it your mind will just automatically revert back to that one moment. And how do you maintain boundaries with somebody that subconsciously resembles your mom or dad?
There's a guy, somebody in the chat, please tell me. He wrote, you might know Pierre. He wrote the book, The Portrait of Dorian Gray. People always think he's an English dandy, but he's actually Irish. Who wrote The Portrait of Dorian Gray? Please tell us in the chat. He would go on at length. Now, he was a dandy and a homosexual. He eventually was imprisoned and then died from the illnesses of being given hard labor whilst in prison. And you wouldn't think that this guy would have this position, but he wrote whole tracts railing against charity. Oscar Wilde, thank you, chat. Railing against charity and the poison that is implicit in charity. When you offer your hand to help somebody, you poison the relationship. It's actually, he goes way deeper into the mechanics of it than I could, because he's a super bright guy. But I remember thinking, wow, I wouldn't expect a guy like this to be so dead against charity and help, because of the humiliation of the person who receives it, and the inevitable resentment and the ressentiment that develops from that.
You know what's interesting is that I've definitely had my rotation of friends throughout the years, of ones that I helped way too much, and then some that I've offered. And you know what's interesting? Like not too long ago, I've offered to help someone I know quite a lot. And the thing is, there's nothing like it wasn't like a romantic thing. It's just like a homie, pretty much. You know, it wasn't like already some weird boundary situation. They're just like a good friendship. And they would just straight up be like, no, man, it's cool. Like if it happens, then yeah, you can help. But like, you know what? It's cool. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you know, at first you're a bit like, oh, okay, you don't want it? All right, cool. But then as time went on, I've offered a few more times, and it's just been pushed, like pulled back more. And I'm like, that's actually a way healthier response.
Yeah.
The fact that they're like, no, it's all good. It's all good. You know, we're still homies, but it's all good. Like, don't worry about it.
Right.
And you know, this is more of a long lasting, like stable friendship too. And I was like, oh, there's a good reason why they said no, and it still works out because of this particular thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's good boundaries. I mean, the ability to resist the temptation of assistance is tremendous boundaries, and represents higher order values, like an embodiment of higher order values. It's fantastic. Because you don't often see that. Most people would just say, yeah, go and help me. And then, are you good? No, I need a little bit more. Are you good? No, I still need a little bit more. Help can only be offered really passively. You're active and the other person is passive. You're yang, the other person is yin. To help somebody whilst forcing them to be yang and to be active, you're going to have to deal with a lot of pouting. You're going to have to deal with it. People are sulky when you do that. Even if they've signed up for it, even if they say, no, that's what I want, They
Hmm.
say that that's what they want, but then you hit that emotional wall and you know they're pissed off. You know that they're not happy with it because you're making them do stuff, and they just, in the core, they just don't want to. They just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting sensation, and I find it in myself. I mean, it's a universal thing. You know, you can't exactly teach anybody to push past that one thing because, like, when someone just tells you what to do, it's really hard to, first of all, evaluate if they have your best intentions in mind, and then second, doing it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Yeah. It's yeah, doing well. Yeah, exactly. And that transition point is really really critical, and that's where I think. Well, I'm doing lectures on seminars on codependency, and that's what generates codependency is an excessive help. But I'm helping people excessively. These
How
courses that
funny.
yeah, these courses that they're getting. I'm no genius, but they're pretty unique. There isn't other stuff out there like it, and I'm not. I'm just a bit like, okay, what am I? I resent it. I do resent it. And now I'm waking up to the thing that like I actually resent this. This is not right. The
Hmm.
way that this is going down is not okay. Classic codependent response: overgiving, 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 and then afterwards being like, I ain't too fucking happy about this. And then the natural human instinct would be, who do I blame? For me, I'm always trying to keep with inside the discipline of going, there's nobody here to blame. People
Hmm.
just respond. It's like, what is there? I'll do it. I'm not going to do it.
Hmm.
Whatever. There isn't really a blame part of this. There's a responsibility part of this, which is, we've had this conversation personally, and it was about work. You should never be doing work for a price that you resent later. You should never do it. You should only
Hmm.
be working at the right price. And that principle translates to all human transactions and interactions.
Yeah, man. When I see my Twitch friends in their hot tubs and bikinis, you know,
Right.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I should be paid about the same. You know, one thing that I've been really I guess pondering or just kind of, playing around with this idea ever since I started watching The Walking Dead. I've been just 100% into this like survival thing. I don't know, something, it tickles something in my brain.
Yeah.
And I've been playing zombie games, playing survival games, blah blah blah. You craft things, you build things, and blah blah blah. And I was thinking about how much uh, there is a lack of external incentive to do anything these days.
We've had that conversation in Serbia a number of times. Even like
Really,
personally, yeah, yeah, yeah.
really,
It's a real problem. It's a real problem. Sorry,
yeah.
I
And
interrupted you there.
no, that's fine. But like, I think it's no coincidence that actually, like, I feel like every time I go on my Steam thing, it's the top three games are first person shooters. They're like number one. And then around 2 or 3, it's about survival, like
Mm,
straight up crafting games. Like
mm,
Minecraft was like the number 1 sold game ever, and it just brought you to this mode of there is an external incentive to do something, to chop down the tree so you can build the house. To
mhm,
get the food, you have to make an axe. To do this, you have to do that. You have to get up in the morning in order to do this, to do that. And because, you know, of where we are now, there is literally no external incentive to do anything.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
even the concept, I was talking with a friend of like running around the block, like just just cuz, like you have to
Because
you,
because I ate too much when Uber Eats came.
yeah, and I just had and to just like because it feels like it's supposed to make you feel you just run around the block, just go take a walk just to take a walk. Like that's I don't think that's how we're programmed. And that's I think why we have such a resistance to it. I have a heavy resistance to this.
Yeah,
Like there's no reason, there's no incentive to just to take a walk. Like okay, and then what,
yeah, yeah. It's a real problem, and there isn't a major problem that anybody could point to in the world today that won't be affected by this to some degree.
Hmm,
It's a key issue. The opportunity for us to live on the hard work of other people, most of whom are dead,
right.
has never been higher than it is now. So we can afford to live in a very parasitic way. And look around you. The world is full of fucking parasites. They've never contributed anything of meaning at all at any point in their lives. And they're
Yeah.
miserable.
I had a long conversation with someone I know about the role of the working class because there's such a divide between like middle class academics and like people that are working class. And I was like, why are you talking shit of the working class so much? Like, what do they do besides like anti-vax? And I'm like, well, they built the house that we're in. They fixed the cars that you need to get repaired.
They make the
They
shit that comes out of you go away so you don't have to see it anymore. Fuckface. That's what the working class is doing.
they literally keep society up. Like what would make society crumble faster if we disappeared the academics and philosophy students or we disappeared the working class?
You be careful, you're about to start a Marxist revolution. That line of thinking is how Marxist revolution. Like, who do we not need here? I think it's these
No,
parasitic bourgeoisie folk.
no, it's not that I want that to happen. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to point out they're just as important, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I just don't think, like you said, we don't acknowledge certain things about our lives that
Yeah.
exist because of it, and then we just live lives pretending it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And I think, well, for me, I have done some construction work. I've taxied. I've cleaned sewerage systems and toilets. I've done bar, and you kind of think everybody should do that. Everybody should do that for at least a few months, so you know what suck is. So you know what a sucky job is. So when you're sat all warm and it's pissing down with rain outside in your office, you can at least go, this job is boring, but at least I'm nice and warm inside the office. Because there are some daft twats like me out in the hills of Wales trying to construct fences in gale force winds. It's pretty tough. It's the perspective. We lose perspective so quickly, and it generates this sort of a sullen, childish malaise. People are like, "Meh, it's not, meh, it's good, but
Yeah.
it's meh."
Yeah, and the reason why I keep thinking about this particular thing is because I've been gaming like nonstop, because why not? And I realize how much more I am willing to go further in doing something because there is some sort of external reward. Like I work out because in the VR game that I play, there's a reason to swing my arms like a goddamn maniac slicing some cyberpunk robot you know like I thought about it while I was playing. Like if I didn't have the fucking VR goggles, this would look so dumb and there would be no reason to do these actions you know
Yeah. There's a group of women who are walking up and down in cloppy clop high heels. I'm sure you can hear can you hear them?
No, I can't, but
But
I
you
can
couldn't hear
imagine
any
it.
of that.
No, it's a noise cancellation.
Oh, it's echoing like hell in here. Clip clop. Let's go over here. Clip clop. Clip. No, let's go over here. Yeah, no, I hear you. Without a reason to do things, we tend not to. We tend not to do it, and it, it's great. Like, well done, humanities. For so
Yeah.
many of us, not all of us, we've reached this wonderful point where we're more likely to die of too many calories than too few calories, or we'll die because there's the third leading cause of death in America is doctors, where previously we didn't have medicine. Our teeth would just fall out and our feet would rot off. So great, well done. But now it's killing us. Now it is killing us, and it's killing us physically, and it's killing us spiritually and mentally and emotionally as well. I don't know what the solution is. The only solution to something like that, really, that's not a cosmetic one, is a real crisis that is at a collapse level event.
Yeah. And I think that maybe subconsciously is why I'm watching so much Walking Dead and playing survival games.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just really it's strange the sensation of having every point checked in, the incentives of how a human being should live
Mm.
in the not how they should live, but how there's like motivations and incentive to do so many certain things in a smaller community where everyone has to provide to each other to live. And things just I don't know if it works better necessarily because there are tons of problems that come with that, but I guess psychologically, it definitely fulfills some sort of void.
Yes, there would be there'd be pros and cons for sure, but without without interfacing with that ever in a person's life. I just think what concerns me is the general consensus attitude that we have now. Not everywhere, because coming to Serbia is a bit of a wake up call. You see the difference between Serbs and Brits. When I come straight from the UK, straight to Serbia. There is a big difference because there's less here. But in the UK, there's loads there. Like, people don't really have to work. If there's a job that people don't want to do in the UK, there's plenty of people from outside the UK who will go and do that for less money with no sick pay and no workers' rights.
Yeah.
And it's generated this sullen malaise. Nothing is good enough. Nothing is ever good enough. And it bleeds out into everything. Nothing is good enough for me. For me. Everything is just... And Louis C.K. said this in a stand-up about 4 or 5 years ago. We rate everything a C+. Like, the best things. It's a C. It was okay.
That's right.
No, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Nah, it's like a C+. Everything is just okay. Because we're numb. We're just not. It's nobody's fault, really. It's not like a conspiracy. We just won. We won the game of survival, and now we fucking suck.
Yeah, I find it just super ironic, just the fact that, you have a class and generation of people who have just exceeded exponentially at technological advancement. And the first thing that they do in this industry is create games where you have absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally programming a whole simulation for a world that has none of what we have now. Like, isn't that just strange that that's the first thing that we choose to simulate?
It's strange, and it's fascinating. I mean, it immediately makes me think, well, why? First of all, what are we missing? Second of all, what do we need? What is it about? There was a game, I haven't let myself play it for years. It's a particular level of Call of Duty Zombies. It's called 5. You play it in the Pentagon, and the Pentagon is broken into by zombies. It's an awful, nightmarish scenario. You play every game knowing you're going to die. There's no winning. You die. It's just how quickly you die. And I loved it. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I playing this obsessively? This was back in 2014. I was doing nightclub work in London at the time. And there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's an intensity of the experience, there's violence, and there's risk. I'm like, what the fuck? Why would I want that? Why am I not just enjoying some of it? But that was what I wanted to do. That was what I wanted to experience. There's an intensity of feeling that you'll only get in risky scenarios that we just don't have to deal with now.
Yeah, and like, I think as someone who I didn't game until the last 2 years because there was nothing else to do when the world was shut down. So, like, before that, I lived ultimately a pretty hedonistic life. I didn't purposely play games and like watch things that would give me fear and anxiety and having my life at risk. It was just pure like bohemian enjoyment.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain point, obviously, like, as the cliche goes, it just doesn't have that same enjoyment. And now I'm wondering the same. Like, you're playing these zombie games and putting yourself in a crazy ass situation. I'm watching The Walking Dead, binge watching the damn thing, and the fucking show hurts, especially when you start like attaching to characters. Like, main characters dying left and right. The fucking like home that they took a goddamn month building just disappears in a fucking second. Like, why am I putting myself in this situation? But why does it feel like something? I don't know. There's something more there beneath all of that fucking pain and suffering in the simulation that you're watching.
Yeah. Just in fairly recent history, we lived that. It makes me think of there's a book. It's a German novel. I think it's from the late 1800s. I think it's called Warwolf, but there's an ambiguity in German. It's werewolf, warwolf. And it was a favorite of some, but not all, Nazi soldiers in World War II. So I thought, I'll read it, see what this thing is about. It's a description of what happened inside of Germany, before Germany was Germany, during the religious wars, where foreign soldiers who were fighting and killing each other would just come and massacre the civilians. rape
Jesus.
them, kill them, torture them, just because they were there and they wanted their grain or they wanted their house or something. And it went on and on and on and on until eventually some of these, simple peasant farmers rose up and they trained and they became the hunters of soldiers. It's a pretty
Hmm.
cool. It's a rather arcane. It's not like excitedly. It's not, the writing isn't particularly scintillating, but it's an interesting story that's based on real historical events. Where groups of farmers would get together and go and hunt the hunters. They would massacre them. They would find soldiers who'd broken away from the main army, or they were deserters. They would capture them and torture them in revenge for what had been done to them. This is not that long ago. This is, in terms of genetic memory, we're not like, spacing out back 6,000 years or something. We're talking a couple of centuries ago. That's in us. That's still there. I don't think we can just switch gear on a species and go, right, go and sit in your apartment and
Yes.
don't have any desire for anything else other than just sitting
For
there
sure.
doing nothing.
That's exactly my life now. So I'm thinking, like, if we take it a step further, I am not trying to fetishize this survivalistic, like, primitive lifestyle thing. Like, I would never survive in a situation like this. I mean, I barely go outside. I couldn't fucking farm or take care of a goddamn flower for all I care, you know? And, but is there a circumstance or a situation as human beings could we put ourselves in that checks all of those marks that doesn't necessarily entail extreme danger by an animal chasing you or like having to grow your own food or blah 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 blah? Is there any other positioning that we could actually manage sanely and still have all of our needs met without that?
No, there has to be the possibility that you'll die, or it's not going to work.
Interesting.
It's not going to work. It's going to be some
Huh.
weird role play.
Yeah, right.
Like when I was thinking about joining the army pre 2001, obviously I didn't know 9/11 was going to happen and we were going to end up in Iraq and Afghanistan. I wonder how much of that was, I was still very young, I was like 20 years old, how much of that was a desire to break out of that sort of comfortable, civilized life. I know it sounds insane. I know it sounds completely psychotic, but maybe I have a gene. Maybe you have a gene for that, and that's not crazy talk because we would. If we do have a gene for that and we want that, we would have survived. That gene would have propagated and it would have survived because you always would have needed that. You always would have needed a certain population of your men who would want to fight for the sake of fighting.
Have you seen the trait? This is a great segue. Excellent job, Richard. We totally planned that out 47 minutes in. Have you seen that TikTok trend, the masculine urge?
I've seen both the feminine urge and the masculine urge. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been
Please
getting
explain it to me, though.
I've been getting a lot of masculine urge traits, trends, and I think it started off masculine, and then the girls started doing the feminine urge
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
But like, just stuff like this. Like, it's just some video of some dude, and then it's just like you insert the blank, the masculine urge to blank. So this one is the masculine urge to stand lifeless on a stormy night, moonlight shining upon my skin, armor broken, wounds infected, and sword in hand. My companion, my friend, you may say, asks breathlessly while staring at the army ahead, how will we do it? And I reply, we have no choice.
It's amazing. I'm going to do one that's the masculine urge to wank 5 times in a row and eat an entire pot of Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah. The reason why I bring this up is because, there's always that talk about masculinity dying and what it even means in today's world and whatever. Because these things are posted by like what looks like 17-year-old dudes to 26.
Yes.
And it's kind of like Gen Z's version, and they're attempting to tap into this idea of masculinity in the culture now, which is done in like some nihilistic, ironic way because they know that that's just not possible at all, but they're doing it,
I actually, I hate this. I hate this.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's one of my complaints, and I said this when I spoke in the manosphere, it's one of my complaints in the manosphere. Masculinity shouldn't be performative. It's not symbolic. There's not like a series of things or hats that you can wear that makes you masculine. It's not rooted in symbols and signifiers. It's rooted in action, and making a fucking TikTok isn't it?
Right. No, I agree. However, the point I'm trying to bring up is that Gen Z knows with their self-aware, self-deprecating irony,
Yeah,
like these guys are not taking themselves seriously. Like they're usually in a parking lot with a tank top and they're jokingly like so it has like this weird meta layer over it
yeah,
because like they know that it's kind of ridiculous that will never fucking happen. But
right.
deep down, there's that masculine urge.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's funny to see how younger generations of dudes are trying to grasp at this loose, archaic idea of what it was, but in the Gen Z TikTok way.
I like that. I like that. And that'll be it. Could be one of the last iterations of something, because I just thought there really isn't room for there isn't it really isn't a need for masculinity in a truly civilized world.
Yeah,
Every plot of land on this planet has been discovered. There's nothing for you to discover.
yeah,
Wars will be fought with at such levels now that you're not going to stick a knife in somebody. Like,
yeah. It's
somebody's going to
just
press a button
RC cars. Yeah,
and your
just RC
town's going to
cars.
turn to dust.
Yeah, like I'm looking at these other ones, and I find them really interesting just because they're usually positive. Like they're not like the masculine urge to
Mm,
like slaughter an entire village just because I want to.
mm,
It's more like the masculine urge to die fighting a whole army of supervillains to this song in order to save my loved ones and emphasize my redemption arc. And there's like one that would be like the masculine urge to fight off a school shooter and save all of my best friends and classmates. They're
right.
they're not what you would call toxically masculine. There
Yeah.
is like a deeply seated urge to like a martyring
Yeah.
savior thing,
Sacrifice. Yeah. Yeah.
sacrificing
Yeah.
thing, but they just can't do it because we're in 2021.
Nobody needs you to,
Yeah,
Thad.
exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And that's sad in a way. It's really,
Yeah,
really sad. I mean, that was what the whole like the genes that propagate forward are the ones that help the tribe to survive, not the
right.
individuals to survive. So the ones who want to fight are also sacrificial. They have a sense of self-sacrifice and, in a way, a desire for it. It's only crazy if you insist on genetics being individual. They're not. They're collective. We're not all supposed to make it. Your genetics are not there so everyone makes it. They're there so
Mhm.
the species makes it. What do we need for the species to make it? Berserkers, kamikaze pilots. That you must be willing to fight and to die for a greater cause in order if there's war. But now, like even if we have a war, it's fucking redundant. It's totally
Yeah,
redundant.
right.
Masculinity now is just a limp, floppy penis.
It is indeed. That's why there's so many hard dick pills out in the market right now. And
Jesus, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
it's crazy.
testosterone levels are flopping.
Yeah, for sure. And the best thing that we can do now is just make TikToks of the idea of
Yeah,
what we want to be.
yeah, yeah,
Ironically knowing that we will never be that.
yeah. Sadly, sharing TikToks with each other of a time that we will never recapture ever again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. It's interesting to see. Just to see how this drive manifests in upcoming generations in a world where none of anything is actually necessary. Like you don't have to fucking do anything, bro.
Not really. I mean, and for many in the Western world, they take advantage of that, and they simply don't. They don't have any drive to leave the house. There isn't. The individuation drive is leave matrix, leave the mother, leave the pod, leave the house, go, go, go. For young men and women now, that's dead.
Dude, it's a fucking beast of a machine. I have tried over and over to repeatedly escape this womb-like structure, and more do I see there's not enough out there to
Mm.
pull. There's too much in here to pull, like that's why I'm really considering the idea of external reward and external incentive these days, because like, people all fantasize about that idea of like, if we never had to work, then we would just contribute to each other regardless for no reason. And it's like, all right, so during the pandemic, when everyone had their workers checked, or what unemployment checks, like everybody just decided to help out each other because out of their own goodwill and heart. Like,
It was a festival of socialism, Pierre. It proved every Marxist 100% right. Humans are not selfish. They're not greedy. They're infinitely giving. They just need to be given the chance to share. And then
Lord.
I woke up.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know where I was going with that necessarily, but yeah, the idea of just external motivations and external reward, where literally could be as simple as this. Before the technological thing, it was just funner to go out. It was a lot more fun. Just like staying inside, that you didn't really have much to do. So by going out, there was more to do. But now there's way more to do inside than to do outside.
Yes. Not under my dictatorship, there won't be. We'll stop all of this. Force people outside. Put them outside. No more devices.
Yeah,
Divisive devices.
I mean, listen, if the current infrastructure or whatever else just was set up in a certain way that would, I don't know, that would just, showcase a little more benefit, then perhaps. But I mean, especially right now with the circumstances, I mean, Prague just went under another state of emergency, so it's going to change real soon. So it's like,
Yeah. No, it's what are you going to do for the winter if it goes into lockdown?
Dude, I've been planning this shit out since earlier this year, bro. I've been like loading up my fucking VR, my gaming PC, getting everybody in my second live streams playing Roblox. It's actually doing pretty well.
Okay. Good. So you're feeling okay with it?
Well, as much as I can. I mean, I'm not like fucking super joyful about the situation, but it's like, what else am I gonna have the masculine urge to break out with my cyberpunk kinetic enhancements and break into the government's office and like push a button,
So it's all about moving stockpiles of stock.
Yeah.
When you buy too much of a product and you think the market's going to want it, and then they don't.
So what do we do with that?
Keep threatening people until they buy it.
Yeah.
It's all a marketing campaign. I'm going to have to go relatively soon. Should we take some questions from these good people?
Yeah, let's take some questions, bro. And the Chama says, men crave the sacrifice for something meaningful, but there may be nothing to sacrifice and no one to sacrifice for. That's exactly it, summarized in one sentence.
Jack Donovan calls that the empire of nothing.
Ooh.
Which is the empire we live in now.
Bleak.
Clara says, stop saying masculine urge. Why? Is it exciting you when Pierre says masculine urge? Masculine urge, bruh.
Can we just like never say masculine? It's kind of offensive.
It's like you're putting masculinity in my ears. It's a hard word.
You ever notice if you just say masculine, there's like a bunch of counter arguments about something feminine, like for no reason?
Yeah.
Like
I've got if you say my finger's quite masculine.
Yeah, if you just say something masculine, like a bunch of people argue against that word, like just for whatever. Like you don't have to say anything like about it too.
We should have a brand that's just called masculine, just to piss people.
Just like people be so mad. Like,
well, why isn't it called feminine? Because it isn't feminine. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's masculine.
Yeah. But there's like feminine for that too.
But that's not what the brand is, you see, because it's masculine.
There's less visible death and more fear of death. Wonder why? Because we're removed from it. We're... Go ahead. You can answer this better.
No, I think I would have only gone the way that you were about to go, which is the dissociation from death. We don't see corpses. We don't see dead people. We don't see people dying.
Well, the way, okay, so the amount of danger in society is just way lower. So anything that even resembles a slight death or slight danger is like a tragedy of fucking whatever goddamn tragedy,
Right.
Like my tragedy is my meal plan service not resubscribing when I wanted them to, and I had to go 4 days just making my own food. It was a fucking tragedy, dude.
That is a catastrophe.
I know.
I don't know where you draw the spiritual strength to withstand these traumas.
Dude, I literally had to stand up from my bed and eat.
That's disgusting. I demand to see the manager. Oh, here's a first world tragedy for you. I came to Serbia and I used my data here. And for 500 megabytes of data, they charged me £120.
Okay, that is actually tragic, though. That's fucking brutal, dude.
Insane.
Jesus Christ, are you serious?
So apparently there isn't an agreement between Serbia and the United Kingdom at the moment.
Well, you paid for someone's phone bill, someone else's. All right, man. You gotta go?
Soonish.
Okay.
I have to use this horrible, crinkly sounding. This is like the paper they gave us in kindergarten to wipe my nose with. My nose has been running perpetually. I don't have a cold.
It looks like you're blowing your nose on your seminar papers, dude.
Fuck this. That's what you get. Independent fucks.
Shit.
Somebody's asked me, what do you do to scratch the risk and violence itch? I don't scratch the violence itch anymore. I used to do door work and deliberately provoke fights with people bigger than me so that I get punched up.
Yeah. What I did was skateboarding and things aligned with that. Like, so it was unicycling now because the cobblestones, and then boxing for a bit, and then now I just do video games. It really does scratch all those like itches, man. It's too much almost.
Probably the desire to travel everywhere all the time is a little bit of a risk.
That's it. That's it. Fight Club vibes, masculinity in crisis with no great war, just a perpetual spiritual war succumbing to materialistic, apathetic nihilism.
Chuck Palahniuk was a visionary.
Yeah, he's amazing, dude. Do you think this current cultural revolution is moving towards a mass enlightenment or another history loop?
It's either coming towards a mass enlightenment or a mass endarkenment. I'm for some reason I'm quite optimistic. For some reason I sort of, maybe it's a trauma response. I sort of believe that we're moving forward and things are getting better, even as they seem to be getting worse. Yeah. Change is a constant. It's quite shit now, so it probably will get better.
I think it's another history loop, but the interesting thing is the technological element. I'm really curious to see how that plays into everything. Like, we're on the precipice of like colonizing other planets, metaverse, NFTs, whatever the fuck, like all these things that are going out all at once. And I'm curious to see where that ends up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Very interesting to see.
Karen says lots of whining going on. Crochet heals that.
Thanks, Karen.
Any other questions you see here?
Richard, you seem more confident again after the old breakdown. Yeah, probably. It's actually arrogant. It's wonderful. It's grandiose arrogance. Confidence. Let's call it confidence. That's positive.
You want to take this from Zaya?
How important? Can I tell you something that I did in the lift? Because I was about to say Zed Shao and try and make it like sound Mandarin. So I was in the lift and I was coming down and I was singing "Everybody was kung fu fighting," and then I went ding 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 loud, and then I went, "Oh, you wouldn't do that if there was like Chinese people in the lift," and I went, "No, I wouldn't." And then the lift opened and there was a group of Chinese people. And they stopped and looked at me, and one guy went, and I was like, "Good evening." I was like, they couldn't have heard me. They couldn't have heard me in the lift going,
Let me tell you, as a fellow Asian person, we have supersonic intuitive racial hearing.
Go through concrete and steel.
They were through the elevator. They heard it straight up, bro.
Believe we are being mocked up there.
There's microaggression, spidey sense, bro.
But I never even thought like that the song was like that until I sang it. So when I started singing, ding 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 ding, I was like, "Hey, this might not be okay."
Funny how things change.
when it comes out of my pink face.
How big was the group?
That was a solid 5. They're like businessmen all with masks on, like 5 people. Definitely, they could have given me a hiding.
You know, the CCP is probably tracking you now because of that. How dare you?
There's a lot of Chinese money here. There was a Huawei conference here just 3 days ago. Yeah,
Bro.
there's apparently loads of investment.
Yeah, I mean, I see a ton of Chinese companies out here in like just Central and Eastern Europe. Like a lot of Chinese companies pop up all over the place, man. There's like Huawei stores and shit in the malls. Crazy.
Yeah. How did you say it? Huawei?
I think it's Huawei. I don't know.
I sort of flag it and go Huawei. Huawei the lads.
Yeah.
Huawei.
Well, let's hope you don't get canceled before your seminar after that incident.
I know, right? It is. I don't know. It's like, it's just everything you can sing. Everybody was kung fu. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the diddle ding ding ding. Ding. It's not okay, man. That is not okay.
Dude, it's so crazy how things have changed literally just in the last 5 years. Like all of that shit was like somewhat okay for at least a few decades, and then 5 years it was like you can't even do the diddle ding 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 ding.
When you do it, it sounds different. It's because you got more bass. It sounds okay.
Yeah, I think if you add bass, I've noticed actually, if you add bass to a lot of the things that you say, it's a lot more acceptable in a lot of situations.
Yes, it definitely diddling ding 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 ding. It's definitely not the same as me in the lifting. Diddling ding 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 ding. It's just nothing changed. Just the pitch.
Yeah, it's the pitch, dude.
My
human
pitch is
subtleties.
racist.
Yeah, dude. Human subtleties, man. Like no one writes a book or explains any of these things. You just gotta know. You just have to know.
I love the fact that nobody's questioning the fact that I was singing to myself in the elevator. Like that's the most normal part of this story. Is like, yeah, of course he was singing.
Dude, I thought you were with someone and they asked you, would you be singing this if there was a Chinese person?
No,
that was just you.
That was me to me. I was like, would you do this if there was a Chinese? And I was like, no.
Wow. So if they did hear you, then that means you were just racially being alone.
I was whitely, racistly alone.
Dude, you were literally being the caricature of what SJW thinks straight white males do in their free time.
I just microaggressed some females and then I spouted out some covert racism.
Dude, it's like, I knew that's what they do. They just make racist remarks with no one around and make money for no reason.
It's like a genetic compulsion. I can't control it. It just spills out of me. Racy, racismo.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. Holy shit. That's good shit.
Well, sir, I better go and I have another interview to do. I came here to take a break, you know. I've never been busier in my fucking life. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, work finds you, man. It's crazy.
Work finds me. It does.
Yeah, it really does.
December, I must.
Yeah, get that Christmas vibes, bro.
Yeah. Shall I sign us off and sign us out? These little tentacle-loving sluts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Pierre, are you going to do a stream now on Pierre Extra?
I'm tired as hell. I'm drained. Dude, I meant to do a crazy flips giving stream yesterday, and I was in a bad mood, so I was just ranting like a crazy divorced uncle the whole 4 hours.
Did you enjoy the tonguing of the nips that I managed to get everybody to do in the chat?
Dude, the power that you have over people's tongues.
I just suggested to people in Pierre's chat because Pierre had left the room when I tuned in. I only had 2 minutes. And I was like, oh, he's gone while I'm here. Okay, everybody, when he comes back, throw loads of tongue emojis at him and tell him you're going to blep blep on his nips.
Jesus Christ. All right, everybody in the chat, please type in a tongue emoji while we say goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.